Imagine walking into a living room where the walls glowed with bold wallpaper, the furniture popped in avocado green, and a fondue pot bubbled at the center of the table. That was the 1960s, a decade when home decor was daring, colorful, and full of character. Here are 30 unforgettable pieces every 60s living room had, now vanished but etched in memory. Let us know which one of them you still remember. 1. Sunburst wall clocks. If you walked into a living room in the 1960s, chances are your eyes would be drawn straight to the wall. Sitting proudly above a couch or fireplace was the unmistakable sunburst clock. Its design looked like it came out of a science fiction magazine, with long rays of metal or wood shooting out from a round center face. Some had sharp, thin spikes painted gold or silver, while others used chunky wooden beams that gave the impression of sunshine frozen in mid-burst. The style was bold, unapologetic, and captured the optimism of the decade. People were fascinated with the future, and the clock on the wall mirrored that excitement. These clocks did more than tell the time. They gave every living room a sense of character. Guests often noticed them first before the furniture, or even the television. The sunburst clock seemed alive, like it was radiating energy into the space. Families loved the idea of mixing art with function, and that's exactly what these clocks achieved. They weren't tucked away in corners or chosen to blend in. They were statement pieces, daring the rest of the room to keep up. The design also reflected the era's fascination with the space race. Rockets were heading for the stars and design followed. The sharp rays stretching out from the clock face reminded many of satellites orbiting above or the sparkle of the atomic age. It was modern, it was sleek, and for a time, it was the symbol of a home that wanted to appear up to date. Today, very few homes display a genuine sunburst clock. Minimalist trends push them aside, making plain, simple wall clocks the norm. But those who lived with one remember its charm. It wasn't only about knowing the hour. It was about adding a spark of drama and joy to an ordinary wall. Some collectors still search for these clocks in vintage stores, restoring them and letting them shine again. For many, spotting one instantly brings back a memory of a warm living room, a buzzing television nearby, and the golden rays of time keeping watch over family life. 2. Large wooden console televisions. Step into a 1960s living room, and you'd almost always see the television taking center stage, not as a flat rectangle on the wall, but as a massive piece of furniture. These console TVs were housed in polished wooden cabinets that often stretched as wide as a dresser. They weren't tucked away like electronics today. Instead, they blended into the room's decor, standing proudly as part of the furniture arrangement. Families placed picture frames, porcelain, figurines, or even vases right on top of them. The TV wasn't just for watching shows. It shaped how the entire room was set up. Evenings often revolved around what came on that glowing screen. Children sprawled on the carpet, parents settled into their chairs, and the console TV hummed softly as black and white images flickered. When color programming arrived, the excitement grew even more. Seeing a program in color felt magical, and that bulky wooden cabinet became the doorway to entertainment, news, and the wider world. For many households, finally being able to afford one of these units marked a real step forward. The craftsmanship of those cabinets deserves attention too. They weren't flimsy boxes built only for function. Some were detailed with carved edges, decorative legs, and smooth finishes that matched the rest of the living room furniture. You could walk into 3 different homes and see 3 different versions of console TVs, each with its own look and personality. These were heavy, solid machines, the kind that needed 2 strong people to move. And when the TV broke down, the local repairman would come to the house, tools in hand, and fix it right there, instead of people replacing the whole unit. As technology advanced, the console television faded away. Slim designs and wall-mounted screens made the wooden cabinet unnecessary. Yet many still recall the sense of togetherness those TVs inspired. They weren't background objects. They held presence, demanded attention, and created rituals of gathering. When someone remembers their first console television, they're really remembering evenings filled with laughter, suspenseful shows, and the comfort of knowing everyone was in the same room, sharing the same story. 3. Built-in hi-fi stereo cabinets. Long before wireless speakers or streaming apps, Music in the 1960s lived inside large wooden cabinets, known as hi-fi stereos. These weren't small tabletop players you could move around the house. They were heavy, beautifully crafted pieces of furniture that sat against a wall like a sideboard. Inside, you'd find a record player, radio, and sometimes even storage for vinyl records, all neatly tucked away behind sliding doors or a hinged lid. To a family that loved music, owning a hi-fi cabinet was a point of pride. On weekends, it wasn't unusual for someone to stack a few records and let them play through the evening. Warm crackling sounds filled the room as Elvis, the Beatles, or the Supremes spun on the turntable. Kids would lie on the rug with comic books, while parents sat nearby reading the paper, the music tying everyone together. These cabinets gave living rooms a soundtrack, turning ordinary evenings into moments remembered decades later. The design of hi-fi cabinets reflected the same mid-century style seen in other furniture of the time. Smooth walnut finishes, tapered legs, and clean lines made them blend into the home rather than stand out as electronics. They were built to last, too. Many still exist in attics or basements, their wood polished and their parts waiting for someone with the patience to restore them. What made them special wasn't only the sound, it was the ritual. Pulling a record from its sleeve, placing it carefully on the turntable, lowering the needle, and hearing the first gentle pop before the music began created anticipation. People didn't skip songs or shuffle playlists. They listened to albums in full, and that slower pace gave music more weight. When smaller stereos and later portable devices appeared, the hi-fi cabinets slowly disappeared from living rooms. Yet for those who grew up around them, just the memory of opening one and smelling the mix of wood and vinyl brings a wave of nostalgia. It wasn't simply background noise, it was part of the rhythm of family life, a steady presence in homes where music meant togetherness. 4. Plastic couch covers. One of the most unforgettable sights in a 1960s living room was the shiny, clear plastic stretched tightly over sofas and chairs. Homeowners treated these covers like armor, determined to keep their expensive furniture spotless for as long as possible. The idea was simple: protect the fabric underneath from stains, spills, or wear. In practice, though, it created a strange experience. Sitting down often came with a squeak, and standing up in summer left the back of your legs sticking uncomfortably to the seat. Still, families accepted the inconvenience because preserving the couch mattered more than comfort. For many households, buying a sofa was a major investment. Furniture wasn't something people replaced every few years. It was expected to last, and plastic covers helped make that happen. Children learned quickly that food and drinks weren't welcome on uncovered fabric, and guests who visited often laughed about the glossy, crinkly feel of the furniture. Some even joked that living rooms looked more like museums, with prized possessions sealed away from damage. These covers also reflected the culture of pride and ownership. A spotless home signaled care and responsibility, and a well-protected couch said a lot about the family. It showed effort to keep things nice, to protect what had been earned through hard work. Looking back now, the practice seems unusual, even excessive, but at the time, it carried real meaning. The covers themselves came in different forms. Some were clear and stiff, snapping into place like fitted plastic. Others were softer, draping loosely, but still creating the same sticky effect. Either way, they trapped dust, resisted spills, and shielded fabric colors from fading in the sun. Of course, they also trap heat. Sitting through a long summer afternoon in a plastic-covered chair was hardly pleasant. Eventually, changing attitudes toward comfort and design ended the trend. People wanted living rooms that felt inviting rather than preserved. Today, the idea of wrapping furniture in plastic feels outdated, yet for those who grew up in the 60s, the memory is vivid. The shine, the squeak, and the unmistakable smell of plastic are reminders of a time when protecting the couch was almost as important as enjoying it. 5. Standing and glass ashtrays. Walk into a 1960s living room, and you'd almost always spot an ashtray close at hand. Some sat on coffee tables in colorful glass, while others stood tall on metal pedestals with wide bowls on top. These weren't small, forgettable accessories. They were considered essential pieces of decor, blending practicality with style in an era when smoking was deeply woven into daily life. A living room without an ashtray would have felt incomplete. The standing versions were especially noticeable. Shiny chrome or brass poles rose from the floor, often ending in a heavy base that kept them steady. At the top rested a large removable dish, sometimes ceramic, sometimes cut glass, ready to collect ash and cigarette ends. They were often designed to match other furnishings, making them feel like part of the room's personality, rather than something tucked away. Guests could light up freely, and the ashtray was always within reach, a silent host at every gathering. The smaller table ashtrays carried their own charm. Many were made of thick glass in green, amber, or ruby tones that caught the light and sparkled in the sun. They weren't hidden after the company left either. They stayed out, often displayed as decorative objects, even when not in use. Some were souvenirs from vacations, emblazoned with hotel logos or city names. Others came as gifts, carefully chosen because they would be seen often in the home. What these ashtrays reveal is just how different attitudes were at the time. Smoking was fashionable, social, and almost expected in groups. Lighting a cigarette while chatting or after dinner was normal. The ashtray was a conversation accessory, as much as it was a tool. Children growing up in those homes often remember the faint scent of tobacco lingering in the air and the soft clink of glass as someone tapped ash into the dish. By the late 20th century, the decline of smoking indoors sent these ashtrays into storage boxes or yard sales. They've become reminders of a culture that shifted dramatically. For those who lived through it, though, spotting an old glass ashtray can instantly bring back the memory of evenings crowded with laughter, stories, and the haze of smoke drifting upward into a living room that always felt alive. 6. Conversation pits. In some 1960s homes, the living room floor wasn't entirely level. Builders created a sunken section, often just a few steps lower than the rest of the room, and lined it with built-in seating. This was the conversation pit, a design feature that encouraged closeness and relaxation. Unlike formal arrangements where chairs faced forward and people sat upright, the pit drew everyone into a circle, almost as if it were a private retreat, within the larger room. These spaces looked modern and stylish, often upholstered in bright fabrics that matched the bold energy of the decade. Cushions in orange, green, or gold are wrapped around the perimeter, creating a continuous bench. A coffee table or a small fireplace usually sat in the middle, making the area the natural choice for late-night talks, family gatherings, or quiet moments with a book. Children stretched out on the cushions, adults leaned back comfortably, and the lowered floor gave the illusion of being tucked away in a cozy hideout. The design reflected the cultural shift happening in the 60s. Homes were becoming less rigid and formal, and the conversation pit embodied that change. It was about creating a space where people felt comfortable spending hours together. Instead of stiff living rooms used only for guests, this became an inviting spot for everyday life. Even television felt different when viewed from the pit, as the seating arrangement brought a casual, communal atmosphere. Of course, the feature wasn't without drawbacks. For families with toddlers or older relatives, the steps posed hazards. Some found it impractical for cleaning, while others felt it disrupted the flow of the room. By the 1980s, most new homes had moved away from the idea, favoring open-plan layouts that didn't require changes in floor level. Yet conversation pits still carry a certain magic in memory. People who grew up with one often recall how it transformed gatherings, making them feel more intimate and connected. Today, when photos of retro homes circulate online, the pit stands out as one of the most distinctive, instantly recognizable symbols of mid-century design. 7. Shag carpeting. Few things say 1960s living room quite like sinking your feet into a thick layer of shag carpet. It came in bold colors like burnt orange, avocado green, mustard yellow, or even deep purple, and the longer the fibers, the more fashionable it seemed. Walking across it was different from modern rugs or carpets. Each step felt soft and springy, almost like walking through grass. Kids loved sprawling on it to watch cartoons, while adults stretched their legs during late-night conversations, comforted by the deep pile beneath them. Shag carpeting wasn't just a floor covering, it was a design statement. Homes in the 60s embraced texture as much as color, and shag offered both in abundance. A living room with shag carpeting instantly felt modern and stylish, especially when paired with sleek furniture and bright upholstery. The carpet caught light in interesting ways, making the entire room feel warmer and more inviting. Of course, maintaining it was another story. The long fibers collected crumbs, dust, and anything else that fell from above. Vacuuming often took extra time, and stains could be difficult to remove once they settled deep into the pile. Still, the effort was accepted because the look was worth it. A room covered wall to wall in, Shag felt alive, full of personality, and unmistakably part of its era. For many families, the carpet became more than decoration. It was where children played board games, where babies learned to crawl, and where friends gathered during parties, sitting cross-legged without hesitation. Shag carpeting turned the floor into usable space rather than just something to walk on. People didn't think twice about sitting down directly on it, because it was that comfortable. Later, the trend began to fade as simpler, easier-to-clean options took over. Yet the memory of Shag remains powerful. Even today, spotting a vintage photo with those colorful fuzzy floors instantly transports people back to a time when style was playful, bold, and unapologetic. To many, the feel of Shag underfoot is more than just a detail. It's a sensory memory of childhood, family gatherings, and a home that wasn't afraid to embrace fun in every corner. 8. Wood paneling on walls. Step inside a 1960s home, and you might feel the sudden shift as you enter a living room lined with wood paneling. The walls glowed with deep tones of walnut, oak, or mahogany, turning an ordinary room into something that felt warmer and more grounded. Paneling wasn't used sparingly either. Many homes covered every wall from floor to ceiling, creating a cabin-like atmosphere, even in the middle of a busy suburb. What made this feature appealing was more than just looks. Wood paneling offered durability. It resisted scuffs better than painted plaster, and families with children appreciated that strength. Some panels had glossy finishes that reflected light, while others showcased the natural grain of the wood. The darker shades gave the space a serious, almost formal tone, though they also made rooms feel smaller and more intimate. People living in those spaces often described the walls as cozy, like they wrapped the entire family in a protective shell. Decorating a paneled room came with its own quirks. Hanging a picture meant carefully hammering into the hard surface, and once a nail went in, it often stayed there for decades. Some families leaned into the look, adding heavy drapes, brass lamps, and leather chairs to match the richness of the walls. Others broke up the darkness with brightly colored sofas or patterned rugs, balancing the seriousness of the paneling with playful touches. Over time, tastes changed. The 1980s and 90s favored brighter, airier rooms, and the once popular paneling began to feel heavy and outdated. Many homeowners painted over it or ripped it out entirely, replacing it with drywall and neutral colors. Yet for those who grew up surrounded by it, the memory lingers. The scent of polished wood, the cool touch of the panels, and the way light lamps cast soft reflections all remain part of that era's atmosphere. Today, wood paneling is making a small comeback in modern design, often used in accent walls rather than full rooms. But the 1960s version, where paneling dominated the space, carries a nostalgic charm that no modern twist can fully capture. For many, those walls still represent comfort, stability, and the sense of home that defined a generation. 9. Crochet, throws, and doilies. Every 1960s living room carried a touch of handmade comfort, and often it came in the form of crochet throws and delicate doilies. They weren't bought from big stores or ordered from catalogs. Most of them were created by hand, stitched patiently by mothers, grandmothers, or aunts who spent evenings working with yarn and thread. The result was personal, colorful, and unmistakably human. Crochet throws often lived on the back of a sofa or folded neatly over an armchair. The patterns varied: granny squares stitched in bright colors, striped designs that matched the room's palette, or intricate motifs that showed off skill and patience. When family members sat down, they'd sometimes pull the throw around their shoulders on chilly evenings. These blankets weren't just decorations. They were used, loved, and often carried the warmth of the person who made them. Doilies, on the other hand, were smaller, but no less noticeable. Placed on the arms of chairs, under vases, or even on top of televisions, they served as both decoration and protection. The lace patterns gave furniture a gentle, homely touch, and they kept surfaces from getting scratched or stained. Cleaning days often meant carefully picking them up, shaking off dust, and placing them back in their spots with pride. These handmade touches also carried meaning. They showed the value placed on time and care. In an era before mass-produced decor filled every shelf, a crochet throw or a doily stood as proof that someone had invested effort into making the home feel warm. They also carried stories: who made them, what year, and often who they were gifted to. Many people today still have one or two tucked away, reminders of the hands that created them. Over time, as trends moved towards sleek minimalism, crochet pieces fell out of style. But they haven't vanished from memory. For those who grew up surrounded by them, the sight of a bright crochet blanket or a lacy doily can instantly bring back the image of a cozy living room, where nothing felt too formal and everything carried a touch of love. 10. Knick-knack shelves and shadow boxes. In a 1960s living room, shelves weren't just for books. Many homes displayed small collections of knickknacks, often arranged carefully on wall-mounted shelves or tucked into wooden shadow boxes. These little displays told stories about the family who lived there. A porcelain cat, a miniature tea set, a seashell from a beach trip, or a ceramic figurine from a roadside gift shop. Each item held meaning. To visitors, they looked like simple decorations. But to the owners, they were reminders of places traveled, milestones celebrated, or gifts received. Shadow boxes were especially popular. Unlike plain shelves, these often had multiple compartments of different sizes, each designed to hold a specific piece. One section might contain a delicate thimble, another a tiny glass horse, and yet another a souvenir spoon. Families often hung these boxes where guests could see them, sparking conversation about where the objects came from. For children, the shelves were a source of wonder. They were told not to touch, but the colorful trinkets were endlessly tempting. Cleaning day always brought attention to these collections. Dusting each little figure, moving it carefully, then returning it to its place was almost a ritual. Sometimes the shelves became crowded as more items were added over the years, but that was part of their charm. They weren't about restraint or minimalism. They were about abundance and personality, turning small objects into a mosaic of memory. These displays also reflected the values of the time. Travel was becoming more accessible, and people wanted to bring pieces of their journeys back home. Souvenirs were a way of saying, "We were there," and shelves provided the stage to show them off. Even simple objects gained importance once displayed, reminding everyone of a particular moment or story. By the 1980s, the trend shifted. Homes became less cluttered, and the habit of collecting small figurines declined. Many shadow boxes were taken down, and knickknacks found their way into storage bins or donation boxes. Still, for those who grew up in homes filled with them, the memory remains clear. A glance at an old figurine can instantly bring back the image of a family living room, cozy, full of character, and never without a story on the shelf. 11. Needlepoint and embroidered wall art. Step into a 1960s living room, and it was common to see walls decorated with something handmade. Needlepoint and embroidered art carried a sense of care that framed prints and posters never could. Stitched carefully over long evenings, these pieces often displayed Bible verses, wise sayings, or cheerful pictures of owls, flowers, or cottages. Each one carried the unique touch of the person who created it, making every piece a little different from the next. The craft wasn't about speed. It demanded patience, steady hands, and an eye for detail. Many women learned from their mothers or grandmothers, passing the skill down through generations. Once finished, the stitched fabric was carefully stretched, framed, and proudly hung on a living room wall. Visitors might pause to read the verse or admire the tiny, precise stitches, knowing the hours of work hidden in each pattern. Unlike mass-produced decor, these pieces gave a home warmth and individuality. They weren't just decoration, they were proof of time invested, of a hobby that blended art with function. In a way, they were also personal records. Some families kept sets of them, each reflecting the interests or beliefs of the maker. A wall filled with handmade art told guests that the household valued both creativity and tradition. The themes were often simple, but comforting. A pair of owls stitched in earthy browns and oranges, a basket of flowers with brightly colored petals, a phrase reminding everyone to count their blessings. Even if you didn't notice them at first, they blended into the atmosphere of the room, becoming part of the background of daily life. 12. Tiki-inspired decor. During the 1960s, many American living rooms borrowed a sense of adventure from faraway islands. The fascination with Polynesian style found its way into suburban homes through tiki-inspired decor. Bamboo furniture, carved wooden figures, colorful mugs with grinning faces, and tropical prints turned ordinary spaces into something that felt like a vacation retreat. It was playful, exotic, and completely different from the formality of the previous decade. The appeal of tiki style was tied to the larger culture of the time. Hawaii had just become a state in 1959. Travel was becoming more accessible, and movies and magazines showed images of palm trees, surfboards, and island life. Families who might never visit the South Pacific could still bring a piece of it into their own homes. A rattan chair or a bar cart stocked with tiki mugs made entertaining feel like a festive escape. Some homes went all in, turning basements or rumpus rooms into full tropical hideaways. Grass skirts decorated tables, plastic pineapples held snacks, and faux bamboo-framed mirrors or lamps. Music with steel guitars or bongos is often played in the background during parties, completing the illusion of being somewhere far from the neighborhood. Guests could sip on rum punch or a Mai Tai while surrounded by decor that celebrated leisure and fun. Of course, not every family adopted the style to the same extent. For some, tiki showed up as small touches, a single carved mask on the wall, or a set of glasses decorated with palm trees. For others, it was a bold statement, almost like creating a themed room inside the house. Either way, the style reflected a willingness to experiment with color and culture, something the 60s encouraged in countless ways. For those who experienced it, the sight of a bamboo chair or a colorful mug instantly brings back evenings filled with laughter, music, and the dream of an island life that once seemed close enough to touch. 13. Floor lamps with triple cone shades. In the corner of many 1960s living rooms stood tall floor lamps that were more like sculptures than simple lights. They often reached shoulder height, with slim poles branching into 3 angled arms, each ending in a cone-shaped shade. The shades usually came in bright colors, red, turquoise, or mustard, or in textured materials that softened the glow. Turn one on, and the room transformed. The lighting was warm, layered, and far more dramatic than a single bulb overhead. These lamps became conversation pieces because they looked futuristic, almost like something designed for a stylish hotel lounge. Instead of hiding the lamp away, families placed them proudly beside armchairs or near the sofa, where they doubled as reading lights and mood setters. In the evening, the soft overlapping circles of light created a cozy atmosphere that felt both modern and inviting. What made them especially memorable was their versatility. Many designs allowed you to swivel each shade in different directions. A child doing homework on the rug could have one shade turned downward, while another pointed across the room to highlight a painting or brighten a corner. Some even included built-in extras like small trays for drinks, magazine racks, or in a few cases, ashtrays attached to the pole. Cleaning them was part of household routines too. Dust collected on the shades, especially the textured ones, and kids were often told to be careful not to knock over the lamp while playing nearby. Their height and slender bases made them a little unstable, but their striking look outweighed the occasional wobble. With time, these lamps started disappearing as recessed lighting and plainer designs became popular. Modern decor preferred hidden or minimal fixtures, leaving the triple shade lamp to feel dated. Yet for anyone who remembers them, the glow is unforgettable. A quiet evening, with music playing from the stereo and the cone shades casting gentle beams, captured the spirit of a decade that celebrated style as much as comfort. Today, vintage collectors hunt for these lamps, and when one is switched on again, it immediately restores the mood of a 1960s living room in all its colorful charm. 14. Stylish bar carts and home bars. The 1960s living room wasn't just a place to relax with family. It was also where friends gathered for cocktails, and nothing captured that spirit better than the bar cart or the built-in home bar. These setups often stood in a corner or against a wall, gleaming with polished glassware and colorful bottles. A rolling bar cart might carry crystal decanters, cocktail shakers, and tall glasses, while a more elaborate built-in bar displayed shelves of liquor behind sliding doors. They weren't hidden away in kitchens. They were proudly shown off as part of the living space. Cocktail culture was thriving at the time. Television shows, magazines, and movies often portrayed stylish adults sipping martinis, Tom Collins, or whiskey on the rocks. Homeowners wanted to bring that same elegance into their own gatherings. A bar cart gave hosts an easy way to mix drinks for guests without leaving the conversation. For many families, it became a symbol of modern hospitality. The design of these pieces added to their appeal. Carts often had brass frames, mirrored surfaces, or wheels that made them easy to move around. Built-in bars, on the other hand, looked almost like secret cabinets with fold-down counters or clever compartments that made entertaining feel effortless. Even the glasses and accessories were chosen carefully, with etched patterns or vibrant colors that matched the bold decor of the decade. It wasn't unusual for guests to remember not just the drinks, but the presentation, the clink of ice cubes, the shine of a polished shaker, and the sound of laughter carried through living rooms lit softly by floor lamps. For a generation eager to embrace leisure, the bar cart symbolized sophistication and fun at the same time. 15. Rotary phones in bright colors. In the 1960s, a phone wasn't something you carried in your pocket. It was a permanent fixture, often mounted on a kitchen or living room wall, and the rotary dial was its most distinctive feature. The heavy handset rested on a cradle, and to make a call, you placed your finger in a numbered hole, turned the dial until it clicked, and then let it spin back with a satisfying whir. That simple mechanical sound was part of daily life, as familiar as the hum of the refrigerator or the ticking of a wall clock. Color made these phones even more memorable. Instead of just black or beige, families could choose avocado green, pastel pink, lemon yellow, or bright red to match their decor. A phone wasn't hidden away. It was displayed proudly, often in plain sight, like another piece of furniture. The cord stretched across rooms as children chatted with friends, sometimes twisted so many times it needed to be unwound. Privacy meant pulling the cord as far as possible, ducking around a corner, or even sitting on the floor to keep conversations out of earshot. The phone had its own role in the rhythm of family life. Parents waited for important calls, children dialed friends for after-school plans, and relatives shared news across the miles. Long-distance conversations were treasured because they were expensive, often kept short, but remembered for their importance. Everyone recognized the sound of the rotary dial, the weight of the handset, and the click of the receiver being placed back into position. Phones also became a backdrop for family memories. A mother might balance the handset on her shoulder while stirring dinner, or a teenager might pace the room during a long chat with a crush. The bright colors gave them personality, blending technology with style in a way that felt distinctly of the era. When push-button phones arrived, the rotary design slowly disappeared. Yet many people still recall the tactile joy of dialing and the patience it required. A vintage rotary phone today is more than just a device. It's a time capsule, a reminder of an age when staying connected meant standing in one spot, cord stretched, with the steady voice of someone you cared about on the other end. 16. Formica coffee and side tables. In the 1960s, the center of the living room often featured a coffee table made with Formica. This material, with its smooth laminate surface, came in a rainbow of colors and patterns that looked futuristic at the time. Some tables were topped with speckled designs in turquoise or red, while others showed off sleek pastel tones that matched sofas and drapes. Side tables, often in matching sets, completed the look. The result was furniture that was both eye-catching and practical, offering surfaces that resisted stains and scratches in a way traditional wood could not. Families quickly discovered how useful Formica tables were. A child could spill a glass of soda or drop a plate of cookies, and a quick wipe with a cloth left no trace. Parents loved how low maintenance they were, especially compared to polished wood that showed every mark. Many homes proudly placed these tables in the middle of gatherings, with magazines stacked neatly or candy dishes waiting for guests. Design also played a role in their popularity. Unlike heavy carved tables of earlier decades, Formica coffee and side tables embraced clean lines and simple shapes. Some had tapered legs, giving them a light, modern look, while others added chrome edging or metal frames that sparkled under the glow of a floor lamp. They reflected the optimism of a decade fascinated by technology and progress. These tables became backdrops for countless everyday scenes. Children spread board games across them, parents rested evening drinks on their surfaces, and visitors left their coffee cups while chatting late into the night. Because they were durable, they absorbed years of family life without losing their shine. In the next decades, taste shifted toward natural wood and glass, and Formica's colorful patterns began to feel outdated. Many of these tables were replaced or tucked away in basements. Yet those who remember them often smile at the thought of their playful surfaces. They weren't just furniture. They captured a moment when design celebrated fun, ease, and modern living, turning even an ordinary coffee table into something lively and unforgettable. 17. Magazine racks. A 1960s living room rarely felt complete without a magazine rack tucked beside an armchair or couch. These racks, usually made from wood or metal, were simple in design, but incredibly practical. Their job was to keep the latest issues of Life, Reader's Digest, Better Homes and Gardens, or Boy's Life neatly stacked and within reach. In an era before smartphones or tablets, magazines were a primary source of entertainment, news, and inspiration. The rack turned them into part of the decor, ready to be picked up at a moment's notice. Styles varied widely. Some racks stood on 4 short legs with smooth, curved sides, while others had spindly metal frames with leather or fabric slings stretched across them. Wooden versions often matched the furniture in the room, stained in walnut or mahogany to blend with tables and cabinets. They weren't flashy, but they served their purpose well. A tidy rack made the living room feel organized, while scattered magazines across the floor made it feel cluttered. Children often remember reaching into these racks to pull out colorful comic books or picture-heavy magazines filled with stories of space travel, celebrities, and new inventions. Adults found recipes, home decorating tips, or political essays folded between glossy pages. Family members sometimes competed for the newest issue, flipping through quickly before passing it on to someone else. Magazine racks also carried a subtle sense of hospitality. When guests visited, they might browse through the selection while waiting for coffee or conversation to begin. The choice of magazines said something about the household, hinting at interests, values, and even aspirations. A rack filled with travel guides suggested curiosity about the world, while stacks of homemaking magazines reflected pride in keeping a comfortable home. Over time, as television grew dominant and digital media eventually took over, the humble magazine rack began to vanish. Homes no longer needed a dedicated space for print, and racks became relics. Still, for those who remember them, the sight of a vintage rack sparks memories of quiet evenings, pages turning, and the feeling of living rooms where stories and ideas rested neatly at your side, waiting to be discovered. 18. Melamine dinnerware. If you opened a cupboard in a 1960s home, you were almost certain to find stacks of melamine plates, bowls, and cups. These brightly colored dishes often made their way from the kitchen straight into the living room, especially on family nights when snacks or casual meals were enjoyed in front of the television. Unlike fragile china or heavy stoneware, melamine was lightweight, sturdy, and nearly impossible to break. For households with young children, it felt like a modern miracle. The designs were cheerful and varied. Some sets came in bold, solid colors like turquoise, mustard yellow, or coral pink. Others featured playful patterns, speckled finishes, abstract swirls, or floral prints that captured the energy of the decade. Matching cups and serving trays often completed the collection, giving a sense of coordination that felt stylish, yet practical. The bright colors looked right at home against shag carpets, patterned curtains, and other bold decor choices of the era. Melamine made life easier, and that convenience mattered. Families didn't worry about a child dropping a plate during dinner, or a guest spilling a drink at a party. Cleanup was quick since the smooth surface washed easily, and hosting felt less stressful when dishes weren't at constant risk of breaking. These qualities made melamine a staple, not just for everyday meals, but also for casual entertaining. Children often remember using these dishes during birthday parties, with cake and ice cream served on cheerful plates that wouldn't chip or shatter. Adults, meanwhile, appreciated how versatile they were. moving seamlessly from the kitchen to the patio or the living room without worry. Melamine captured the mid-century focus on practicality blended with design, giving ordinary meals a splash of fun. As the decades passed, melamine lost its spotlight. Concerns about food safety, along with changing tastes in tableware, led many households back to glass, ceramic, or porcelain. Yet the memory of melamine is strong for those who grew up with it. The feel of a lightweight plate in your hand, the sound of stacking colorful cups together, and the sight of those bright sets on a family table all recall a time when durability and design went hand in hand. 19. Vinyl record collections. Before playlists lived in phones and computers, music in the 1960s was stacked on living room shelves in the form of vinyl records. A family's collection often said as much about them as the decor on the walls. Rows of cardboard sleeves, some brightly illustrated and others worn at the edges, filled cabinets or wooden crates. Pulling one out felt like a small ritual, sliding the disc from its sleeve, setting it on the turntable, and lowering the needle while everyone waited for the first crackle of sound. Record collections covered every mood and occasion. Teenagers might have albums by the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, or the Supremes lined up beside their parents' favorites, like Frank Sinatra or Nat King Cole. Jazz, folk, and Motown often mingled on the same shelf. On Friday nights, families chose a few records to spin while playing board games or sipping drinks, letting the music shape the atmosphere. Each album carried not just songs, but memories tied to the moments it played. Part of the charm was the artwork. Album covers were large, colorful canvases that drew the eye as much as the music drew the ear. Some people framed their favorite covers or displayed them on top of the stereo cabinet. Friends flipping through a collection could tell instantly what kind of taste the household had, and conversations often began with a shared love of a band or a surprise discovery of a rare record. Collections grew steadily, often over years. A birthday might add a new LP, or a trip to the store could mean spending allowance on the latest release. Over time, certain records became family staples, played so often that the grooves wore down. Children growing up in those homes often remember the same songs filling the background of everyday life, from chores to celebrations. When tapes, CDs, and eventually digital music took over, vinyl faded from most living rooms. Collections were boxed up or sold at yard sales. Yet many who lived through the 60s still remember their records with fondness. The feel of a heavy disc, the smell of the cardboard sleeve, and the anticipation of setting the needle made music more tangible. A record collection wasn't just sound, it was part of the furniture, of memory. 20. Wall-to-wall drapes. Look at photographs of 1960s living rooms, and you'll notice how the windows were rarely left bare. Heavy drapes, often stretching from ceiling to floor, and sometimes wall to wall, framed the glass. They weren't just window coverings. They acted as a statement, piece, shaping the mood of the entire room. Bold patterns in gold, olive green, or burnt orange filled the space with color, while thick fabrics gave the home a sense of elegance and privacy. For many families, the drapes were as important as the sofa or the television. They added warmth in winter by keeping out drafts and gave shade in summer afternoons when the sun poured in. Closing them made the room instantly feel more intimate, as if the outside world had been shut away. Hosting guests felt different too. With the drapes drawn, the living room turned into a cozy theater, especially when paired with a glowing lamp or the hum of the television. The choice of fabric and pattern carried meaning. Some homes leaned toward floral designs, while others favored geometric prints that matched the mid-century love for modern shapes. Tassels, tiebacks, and layered shears added detail, giving homeowners a chance to express taste and personality. Children often played with the long cords or hid behind the folds during games of hide and seek, turning the drapes into more than decoration. Because they covered large areas, cleaning and maintaining them took effort. Many households had them dry cleaned once or twice a year, a chore that required removing the heavy fabric and rehanging it later. Yet families accepted the work because the effect was worth it. A room with wall-to-wall drapes looked complete, polished, and fashionable. 21. Fondue sets for entertaining. In the 1960s, no living room party felt complete without a fondue set sitting proudly at the center of the coffee table. It usually consisted of a small pot made of ceramic or metal, kept warm by a little burner or candle underneath. Long forks with colorful handles surrounded the pot, ready for guests to dip bread cubes, vegetables, or fruit into melted cheese or bubbling chocolate. The fondue wasn't just food. It turned eating into an activity that pulled people together. The ritual itself made it special. Everyone gathered around the pot, waiting for their turn, talking, and laughing while dipping into the creamy mixture. Unlike a typical meal, fondue slowed things down. Each bite was shared in conversation, and the process made entertaining feel relaxed and playful. Guests often remember the smell of rich cheese filling the room or the sweet aroma of chocolate, scents that marked the memory of countless gatherings. The fondue set also reflected the adventurous spirit of the decade. Global influences were making their way into American kitchens, and fondue, borrowed from Switzerland, felt modern and sophisticated. Serving it at home gave hosts a touch of glamour, as if they were part of a wider stylish trend. Magazines even published recipes and tips for the best combinations, encouraging families to try new ingredients. For children, fondue night felt like a treat. Dipping fruit into chocolate or bread into gooey cheese was fun and a little messy, but it also felt different from everyday dinners. For adults, it was a way to socialize without worrying too much about formality. The fondue pot itself, often brightly colored or designed with sleek mid-century curves, became part of the decor, ready to be used whenever guests arrived. Yet they remain a symbol of the 60s, an object that represented not only a new way of eating, but also a new way of connecting. For those who remember it, the fondue pot wasn't just a kitchen tool. It was the centerpiece of evenings filled with warmth, laughter, and the simple joy of sharing. 22. Avocado green and mustard yellow upholstery. Few colors define the 1960s living room quite like avocado green and mustard yellow. Sofas, armchairs, and ottomans were often upholstered in these bold shades, sometimes accented with burnt orange or deep brown. The result was a palette that felt warm, daring, and unmistakably modern for the time. Walk into a home with these colors, and you know instantly you are in a space that embraces the trends of the decade. The fabrics varied just as much as the hues. Some couches were covered in smooth vinyl that gleamed under the light, while others had textured weaves that added depth and durability. Patterned upholstery was common too, with geometric prints or floral designs blending mustard and avocado into eye-catching combinations. Families didn't shy away from strong color. They leaned into it, letting their living rooms burst with personality. These shades worked hand in hand with other design elements of the era. Shag carpets in gold or orange, dark wood paneling, and chrome-legged coffee tables all came alive against the backdrop of vivid upholstery. Together, they created a room that felt energetic and lively, the kind of place where neighbors gathered for cocktails or families sprawled out to watch television. For children, these couches became playgrounds as much as seating. The sturdy fabrics could withstand jumping, sprawling, and even the occasional spilled drink. Parents appreciated their resilience, while guests often commented on the boldness of the style. In many homes, the sofa became the most memorable piece of furniture, standing out in photos and memories alike. As taste shifted in the following decades, these colors fell out of favor. Neutral tones and softer palettes replaced the loud, unapologetic shades of the 60s. Yet avocado green and mustard yellow remain iconic. Spotting them today in a vintage shop or on an old photograph instantly recalls the era of bold design, where homes weren't afraid to embrace color with confidence. For many who lived through it, sitting on one of those bright sofas brings back memories of laughter, family evenings, and the sense that their living room was truly alive with energy. 23. Starburst mirrors. Alongside the bold clocks of the 1960s, many living rooms also showed off starburst mirrors. These decorative pieces radiated outward from a small central mirror, with metal or wooden spokes, shooting out like rays of the sun. Some designs were sleek and metallic, echoing the space-age mood of the decade, while others used wood to soften the effect and match furniture. Hung above sofas, fireplaces, or sideboards, they added instant drama to a wall that might otherwise feel plain. The appeal of the starburst mirror wasn't just its shape. It reflected light in ways that brightened a room, bouncing sunlight during the day and lamp glow at night. In homes with darker paneling or heavy drapes, this shimmer helped balance the space. Guests often caught a glimpse of themselves in the center while the decorative rays drew their eyes outward, making the mirror both practical and artistic. Designers at the time were fascinated by atomic and celestial themes, and the starburst fit perfectly. It carried the same futuristic optimism as rocket launches and space exploration, while still being accessible enough for ordinary families to buy and hang in their homes. A well-placed starburst mirror gave the impression that the household kept up with modern trends, and for many families, that mattered. These mirrors also had a way of making a statement without overwhelming the room. Unlike patterned wallpaper or brightly colored upholstery, they were accents, stylish flourishes that added personality without taking over. Families could pair them with framed photographs, needlepoint art, or shelves of knickknacks, and the mirror would tie the wall together. As the years passed, tastes shifted toward simpler frames and larger, more functional mirrors. The starburst design was boxed up, sold off, or forgotten. Yet spotting one today in a vintage store brings back a flood of memories for those who lived with them. It recalls afternoons when the golden rays caught the sun, or evenings when the mirror reflected the soft glow of a lamp during family gatherings. More than decoration, it symbolized an era when design dared to be bold, playful, and forward-looking. 24. TV trays. For many families in the 1960s, dinner didn't always happen at the kitchen table. Instead, meals often moved into the living room, thanks to the convenience of folding TV trays. These lightweight tables, usually made of metal with colorful tops, unfolded easily and gave everyone a personal dining spot right in front of the television. Whether it was a weeknight supper or a Saturday morning breakfast, TV trays turned the living room into a casual dining room. The designs were as memorable as their function. Some trays had cheerful floral prints, while others showed geometric patterns or glossy solid colors. A popular set might come with 4 matching trays and a stand to store them neatly when not in use. Families often kept the stand tucked against a wall, ready to bring it out whenever a favorite show came on. Children were especially excited when it was TV dinner night, balancing their plates while watching cartoons or family programs. These trays reflected how entertainment was reshaping daily life. The television wasn't just background noise. It became central to routines, even influencing how meals were shared. Instead of formal dinners, families sometimes chose the comfort of eating together while following their favorite programs. It felt relaxed, modern, and in step with the culture of convenience growing during that era. Practicality played a role too. TV trays were easy to clean, lightweight enough for children to carry, and strong enough to hold a full meal. They also doubled as small workspaces. Kids sometimes used them to draw, color, or build puzzles, while adults used them for sewing or reading the paper. Their portability meant they could move anywhere in the house, though they were most at home in the living room. 25. Ceramic or glass candy dishes. A familiar sight in many 1960s living rooms was the candy dish, often perched on a coffee table or side table where guests could see it right away. These dishes came in cut glass, colored glass, or ceramic, and they were rarely empty. Hard candies, mints, or wrapped chocolates filled them, ready to be offered to visitors or enjoyed by the family during quiet evenings. The dish wasn't just about the candy inside. It was about hospitality and a touch of elegance in the home. Cut glass dishes were especially common. They sparkled under lamplight, their faceted edges catching reflections from every angle. Some were shaped like little bowls with lids, while others spread out like shallow trays. Ceramic versions often carried painted flowers or gold accents that matched other decorative pieces in the room. In either form, they added a sense of polish, like a finishing detail that made the living room feel complete. Children often remember sneaking pieces from these dishes when adults weren't looking. The crinkle of a candy wrapper gave them away, but the memory of reaching into the dish for a sweet is still vivid for many. Guests, too, often recall being invited to help yourself as soon as they sat down, the candy dish acting almost like a silent host that broke the ice. The dish also fit neatly into the rhythm of the time. Entertaining at home was common, and offering candy was a simple, inexpensive way to make visitors feel welcome. Even if nothing else was served, a well-stocked candy dish showed care and thoughtfulness. It was a small detail, but it carried weight in shaping the atmosphere of the room. Over the years, the habit faded. Concerns about sugar, along with changing ideas of decor, pushed candy dishes aside. Coffee tables became less cluttered, and bowls of sweets were no longer expected. Yet for those who grew up in homes where one always stood ready, the memory is sweet in more ways than one. The glimmer of glass, the color of hard candy shining through, and the simple joy of being offered a treat remain part of the picture of a 1960s living room. 26. Shadowy pole lamps. Another hallmark of 1960s living rooms was the pole lamp, a tall fixture that stretched from floor to ceiling. These lamps didn't need a base or a table to stand on because they were tension mounted, pressing firmly between the floor and the ceiling. With multiple arms branching out, each holding a globe or cone-shaped shade, they looked dramatic, almost architectural. In a dimly lit room, they cast long, shadowy patterns across the walls, instantly changing the mood. What made pole lamps so appealing was their flexibility. Many designs let you swivel or reposition the arms, directing light where it is needed. A shade could point down toward a book, across the room to brighten a corner, or upward to wash the ceiling in a warm glow. Families used them for both task lighting and ambiance, and the effect always felt stylish. They didn't just illuminate the room, they shaped it. The shades themselves varied widely. Some were frosted glass globes that glowed softly, while others were textured plastic in orange, gold, or green that threw tinted light. At night, the lamps made the entire living room feel like a lounge, perfect for parties or quiet evenings listening to records. Children often remember lying on shag carpeting, staring up at the glow, and imagining the lamps as futuristic trees. Beyond their function, pole lamps fit neatly into the mid-century modern aesthetic. Their sleek lines, metallic finishes, and bold shapes echoed the optimism of the space age. They didn't require much floor space either, which made them practical for smaller living rooms. Instead of cluttering the area with side tables and lamps, one tall pole lamp could provide all the light needed. Eventually, recessed lighting and more minimalist fixtures took their place. In the 1970s, many pole lamps were discarded or pushed into storage, considered too flashy or impractical. Yet vintage enthusiasts today hunt them down, restoring their metallic frames and rewiring the shades. For anyone who lived with one, the memory remains strong. The soft hum of the stereo, the golden glow of the lamp, and the way its shadows made the room feel alive. It wasn't just lighting, it was an atmosphere, pure and unforgettable. 27. Latticework room dividers. In the 1960s, many homes experimented with open layouts, but rather than leaving spaces completely bare, families often used latticework room dividers. These weren't solid walls. Instead, they were lightweight partitions made of wood, metal, or acrylic, cut into repeating patterns that let air and light pass through while still creating a sense of separation. The designs ranged from geometric grids to flowing organic shapes, adding both function and flair to living rooms. These dividers often stood between the living and dining areas, giving each space its own identity without shutting one off from the other. Guests could still talk across the divider, and light from a chandelier or lamp spilled through the cutouts, casting playful patterns on the floor. The effect was both practical and decorative, turning an ordinary living room into something that felt more dynamic. The style reflected the boldness of the era. Homeowners embraced patterns that made statements, circles stacked in rows, diamonds linked together, or abstract shapes that looked almost futuristic. Unlike plain walls, the lattice felt alive. It added rhythm to the room, and its presence often became a conversation starter when visitors arrived. For children, the dividers were irresistible. Many remember peeking through the openings during games of hide and seek or tracing the patterns with their fingers while sitting on the floor. Cleaning them, however, could be a chore. Dust collected along the edges, and wiping down each shape took time. Still, families accepted the effort because the dividers gave their homes a unique personality. As tastes shifted, the latticework fell out of style. Many dividers were removed during remodels, leaving only faint marks on ceilings or floors to hint they were ever there. Yet for those who grew up with them, latticework dividers remain a vivid memory. They weren't just architectural details, they represented the creativity of a decade that wasn't afraid to blur the line between practical design and artistic expression. 28. Rumpus or rec rooms. Beneath many 1960s homes, often in basements or side additions, there was a space designed for pure fun. The rumpus room, sometimes called the rec room. Unlike the formal living room, which was kept neat for guests, the rumpus room was casual, noisy, and a little messy by design. It was the family's escape zone, where kids could sprawl out on the floor, adults could host parties, and nobody worried too much about breaking the rules of formality. These rooms often had wood paneling on the walls, linoleum or carpet underfoot, and plenty of space for games. Ping pong tables, dartboards, or card tables were common, and a record player might sit in the corner, ready to fill the room with music. For families with teenagers, the rumpus room was the perfect spot to hang out with friends without disturbing the rest of the house. Laughter, music, and the clatter of board games became the soundtrack of these spaces. The furniture reflected its purpose too. Sofas might be secondhand pieces moved down from upstairs, beanbags were scattered around, and folding chairs came out when more seating was needed. Bright colors and funky decorations gave the room a playful feel. In some homes, small bar areas or snack counters made gatherings even easier, turning the space into a lively hub for birthdays, holidays, or casual get-togethers. What made rumpus rooms special was the freedom they represented. Parents relaxed their expectations in these spaces. Shoes on the couch? Fine. Drinks on the table? Expected. It was a place to unwind, laugh loudly, and make memories. Children often recall the rumpus room as the backdrop for their favorite games, sleepovers, or the first time they watched a movie with friends without supervision. Over time, as basements were converted into more polished family rooms, the rumpus room lost its unique identity. But for anyone who grew up in the 60s, the word rumpus still sparks a smile. It recalls a space built for noise, fun, and freedom. A room where life didn't have to be perfect, only joyful. 29. Wall-mounted clocks in kitchens and living areas. In a 1960s household, a clock on the wall was more than a tool for keeping time. It was a fixture of daily rhythm. Many living rooms and kitchens had a large, visible clock mounted where everyone could see it. Families relied on those steady hands to know when dinner was ready, when children needed to leave for school, or when a favorite television show was about to begin. The gentle ticking or steady hum became part of the background of everyday life. Design mattered too. These weren't plain or hidden devices. Some clocks had bold Art Deco styling, while others carried the sleek lines of mid-century modern design. Popular colors included avocado green, sunshine yellow, and soft turquoise, chosen to match cabinets, drapes, or upholstery. A clock wasn't just placed anywhere. It was chosen carefully so that it became part of the living room or kitchen's personality. Children often remember glancing at those clocks while waiting for cartoons on Saturday mornings or watching the minutes crawl toward bedtime. Parents, meanwhile, planned their days around them. In a time before digital alarms or phones in every pocket, that wall-mounted clock quietly governed the household, reminding everyone when it was time to eat, work, or rest. Some clocks went further, doubling as decorative pieces. Starburst shapes, sunburst rays, and sculptural frames made them look like artwork as much as instruments of time. Guests often noticed them, sometimes pausing to admire their unique designs. The clock wasn't hidden away. It stood proudly, part of the decor as much as any lamp or framed picture. By the late 20th century, many of these clocks disappeared. Battery-powered models replaced those that needed winding, and digital displays began to dominate. Still, for people who grew up in the 60s, the memory of those clocks is vivid. The sound of ticking in a quiet kitchen, the way the face glowed under a lamp, or the glance upward during a busy evening all remain tied to the feeling of home. They weren't just about telling time. They set the rhythm of family life. 30. Linoleum and patterned vinyl flooring. Look down in a 1960s living room or kitchen, and you'd often find floors that were anything but plain. Linoleum and patterned vinyl were the favorites of the time, bringing color and design into spaces that had once been simple and uniform. Checkerboards, swirling atomic shapes, floral repeats, or bright geometric prints turned every square foot into part of the decor. Even small rooms felt alive under the bold patterns. Families loved these materials because they were durable and practical. Children could run across them, pets could scratch them, and spills could be wiped up with ease. Unlike wood, which needed polishing, or stone, which could chip, linoleum and vinyl offered resilience. They were affordable too, which meant even modest homes could enjoy stylish floors that looked fresh and modern. The colors were striking: turquoise mixed with white, mustard paired with chocolate brown, or red swirled with black. Designers encouraged homeowners to think of the floor as an extension of the room's personality rather than a neutral backdrop. Matching curtains, upholstery, and flooring became common, creating spaces that felt coordinated and full of energy. Children often remember lying on those patterned floors while coloring or playing board games, the designs becoming part of their imaginative worlds. Parents, on the other hand, appreciated how the surfaces stood up to daily life. Cleaning was straightforward, one swipe of a mop, and the floor gleamed again. The combination of bold looks and easy care made linoleum and vinyl nearly universal in households of the era. As decades passed, these styles fell out of fashion. Neutral tones, hardwood, and carpets replaced the playful patterns. What once looked cutting edge began to feel dated, and many homeowners covered or tore out the vibrant designs. Yet nostalgia has kept their memory alive.